welcome in, builders. We are checking out EA Niefelheim, Sons of Winter. This is a very fun, very, pardon the pun, cool nation. It's one of the ones I think a lot of new players kind of gravitate towards, and it is a perfect example of why I think so many people love playing in early age. You've got cool giants, you've got even gianter giants, you've got mages that are good at what they do and can cast cool spells. It is just a prime example of early age and a ton of fun to play. Let's take a quick look at their lore before we hop all the way in here. Niefelheim, the land of eternal frost, was once home of the frost giants. The Rimtursar, primordial giants of godlike powers, were the undisputed rulers of the world until the god of thunder hunted and slew them. The giants of Jotunheim are the descendants of the Rimtursar. From the cold glaciers in Niefelheim, frost giants have emerged anew. These Niffle giants are not nearly as powerful as their ancestors, but they are stronger by far than the giants of later ages. Giants are immensely strong and resilient, and the Jotuns are even stronger and tougher than other giant races. They are almost impervious to the cold of winter, but thunder and lightning still recognize their old quarry, and the giants of the land greatly fear the wielders of lightning bolts. Niefelheim is ruled by several jarls who rarely join forces. Gaijas, old and wicked hags, served the Niffle giants with sorcerous advice. The people of Niefelheim prefer to live in very cold provinces. So, God of Thunder, Thor, and his war on the ice giants took his toll on it. So this is another nation that has deep history. Like, they've already gone through a wheel turning. We don't even see the Rimtursar, the actual frost giants. We just get like the lesser ones here. A trend that follows Niefelheim through the ages, that they just lose more and more of their giantness as time goes by, and that's the story of most non-human nations. Looking at national features, we are cold resistant, and we prefer cold scales +3. So we are an extremely temperature sensitive group. We want it to be really cold, like really cold. For our military, we have Niffle giants, giant infantry, and skin shifters. I don't think skin shifters really should apply here. We do not have infantry skin shifters in this age. We only have a mage, but it is what it is. For magic, we have water, which is good access, blood, which is pretty good access, death, which is good access, some glamour, some nature, and a little bit of astral. Great pathing here. Plenty of things you can do with those, and we will take a look when we get to magic and our casters, but good pathing, and it gives us access to tools that are quite important to us, our cold immunity / cold need. Our priests are average. We have 2 different units that are holy level, holy level 2s, otherwise we have holy 1s. In our lineup here of commanders, everyone except for our scout and our Gaija are sacred or priests, so we have plenty of things there. We only have 1 cap only sacred. It is, well, we'll talk about him. For scales and blesses, we have cold limit +2. So that means that by default, you can go all the way to cold 4 from jump, and you're going to probably want to. We like cold 3, so when you get towards spring, summer, fall, that'll keep your scales at cold 3, cold 2, hopefully. Even with an event, cold 1, you really want to stay cold. And we'll see more of the reasons why as we go through there. But it is greatly to our advantage to be in cold and have those cold scales. In addition, for buildings, we have giant forts, which are more expensive, but a little bit better. They're okay. They're not like, I don't excited when I see giant forts, but they're fine. Our forts reduce cold scale deaths by 2 steps, though. So if we are at cold 4, our forts act like it's only cold 2. So you're not going to have as much pop kill on having extreme scales. So pretty nice there. And even at cold 4, most of the year, you're probably not going to have cold 4 in most of your places. You'll probably be at cold 3 or cold 2 because the temperature scales globally, global events, etc. So that's pretty helpful. For units, we only recruit giants nationally, and giants are pretty good chassis if a tad expensive. Let's start in here. We have our Jotun Bondi. These are our militia equivalent, and while they're not stupendous or anything, for a militia unit, they're okay. Of note, for 20 gold, you get 31 HP. That's actually a lot of HP for, I mean, you're getting HP and a half per gold. That's pretty darn good. But they have high resource cost, decent recruitment cost. Protection 13 is pretty good for a militia type unit. Their attack's low, however. Nothing to write home about here. Why would you ever get these? They're your cheapest siege chaff for both breaking and holding up walls. That would be one reason. Other than that, though, I don't think I would ever really get these guys. Let's take a look at our essentially racial traits here. We, as a giant, are susceptible to shock. We were just so scarred by the God of Thunder in ages past that we've just inherited a malice to our ability to resist lightning. So susceptible 5 isn't the worst thing ever, but the way calculations work, being susceptible to something is very notable. So just know, if you're going up against lightning damage, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt real bad. We also have cold resist 15, so we are not going to take any fatigue from being very cold. We can slam cold friendly fire spells into ourselves and really not care. It'd be unlikely that we'll do damage to ourselves. You can have ice drakes breathe through your front line and you won't care. Very nice attribute to have. And our troops also have snow move, so moving across snowy terrain normally costs more map move points. For us, it does not. Of note, map move 14 isn't the fastest. 16 is kind of sort of the standard, so we're a tiny bit slow, but having the mobility option definitely helps. And as things are frozen, you can walk across frozen rivers, which can help, and you'll close mountain passes. So just keep that in mind. Next up, we have a lot of troops that are relatively similar, so I'm going to kind of pair them up. We have Spear Guy that doesn't have Javelin. He has 10 attack, 12 defense, 13 protection. And we have Spear Guy who has Javelin with 11 attack, 13 defense, 15 protection. Of the two, I would always pick the guy that has Javelins. Giants with Javelins are pretty good. At range 21, we have normal precision 10, so we're not throwing out a penalty or anything. These are really good. These are like pin people to the ground if they get hit levels. At 23 piercing damage, you could even break through shields sometimes with these. Because, like, for example, our shield here, relatively decent one, 16, we're going to hit that. We are going to hit that really hard with our 23 throwing damage. Remember, you get a DRN on top of that. So, very nice javelins. The range is such that you often will... You'll definitely get your first volley off easily. You'll get it off before human javelin throwers could shoot back at you. And you'll most likely get most of your guys to throw their second javelin. So at the beginning of combat, I usually just have these guys or the other javelin guys on fire closest. I don't even need to tell them to hold because they're not going to go very far forward and they'll start throwing. And I want to get those out because these are actually pretty good. Often against indies, if you have enough javelins, weaker troops like light infantry, militia, etc., will break from morale death as they're running in and getting hit with these javelins. So sometimes you can clear out a whole set of indies and not even have to engage in melee combat. If these guys do get into melee combat, they have a length 4 spear. So against normal spears, you will get repels and they will not. So that is quite handy. Of note, all of our giants are size 6, however. This means that you're only going to have 1 per square. Your attack density is not very good, and you are vulnerable to getting surrounded and hacked down. 36 HP with 15 protection is pretty darn good. You're probably going to get some repels, but you've only got 11 attack, so not the best thing in the world. You're not going to be getting harassed on your enemy because your attack density is so darn low that there's decent odds that if you let yourself get surrounded, it's bad time bears. You would really quite like to at least have straight-facing front lines and not be wrapped on your sides. That can be relatively difficult because we have a lot of leaders who do not have formation ability. We do have people who can do it, but I find myself not getting those guys in the beginning. So just know you got to kind of be careful about getting wrapped. Another thing to think about is size 2 can fit 2 extra people in a square with these guys, and they would absolutely love that. Even if they didn't do anything but get harass penalties on your enemy, or ablate a few hits coming in on you, they would absolutely love that. And even skelly spam. Just having a skeleton stand in the square with these guys like rockets their ability to fight quite high. And that's going to be the same for all of our size 6 giant troops. Next up, we have guy with axe and guy with axe and javelins. With the javelins, we have attack 10. Without, we go up to attack 11. If I was going to get these guys, it would be because I need to hack through something really, really big. Our spears do 24 piercing damage. Our axes deal 29 slashing damage. Where would this be valuable? Pretender gods. Somebody's trying to rush you with a trampler pretender god. 20 of these guys will probably, if not kill them, you're going to hack in some afflictions most likely. Because even a good pretender build, you're probably sitting at 26 to 30 protection. Even at 30 protection, we have about even odds of actually doing damage to them anyways. And with slashing damage, there's chances that you'll cut off limbs. Very, very nice. Also of note here, this guy has bodyguard. If you are looking for that, it is there. Note that our resources and recruitment points are about even. So whatever you do with your order and production scales, you probably want them to be about even. Next up, we have the Jotun Hurler. This is our, I guess, ranged troop. We throw boulders at range 7 for 36 blunt damage, which is pretty good. We only have 2 ammunition, however. I personally don't love these guys. Where would I use them? Against super high defense, high density targets, aka glamour type troops, elfie type troops, vans, furbogs, anything that's running around glamored up. Super high defense. As you've seen from our troops, we tend to have 10 or 11 attack on most of our line infantry. We would really struggle fighting a block of, 3, like 16 defense, shielded, Tirnanog troops, let's say, with a bless on top of that. This will just squish them. So quite good there. They also have siege bonus 5, so if we look at our siege strength, these are 9.4 siege strength each. So 10 of these guys will give you 94 siege strength, which is a lot of siege strength. It would not be remiss of you to grab 10 or 20 of these guys if you need to crack forts, or even if you have to defend a fort. Having a few of these behind the front door, just to hurl a couple rocks, not too bad. Once they're out of ammunition, they do have a hand axe. It's attack 10. It is what it is. I'm not in love with it, but at least they have something. They're not down to just fists like the disco bolus thrower for Makone. They're okay. They're okay. They have a purpose. So that's most of our troops here. Generally speaking, I expand with the Gaudy Huskarl, which is our spear with javelin guy. I find that as long as you're not getting wrapped, you don't have much attrition. In the practice game behind here, I accidentally walked into a throne. I was pathing somewhere else and I didn't notice, and I won. And I won with only a couple losses because they just repelled everything. They threw their javelins and wiped out about 20 guys on the charge in. It was an easy throne, to be fair, but still, I mean, how often does an expansion party accidentally a throne? Pretty cool. Our last troop here is the Jotun Hildeman. These guys are our elite troops, and I think once you switch over to fighting nations, you have to make the call of, do I want the javelins more than I want extra attack? And you have to really make that call. These guys are pricey. They are 50 gold. The resources and recruitment points at 33 and 31 is kind of whatever, but the 50 gold, for 50 gold, we could get this is 40, so 10 less. Let's go even cheaper here. This is 30, so 20 less. I mean, even like if we just want HP, we could get 2.5 of our Bondi for the price of one of these guys. But these guys are running around with broadswords, which are generally speaking a pretty good weapon. And because we're so large, we have a length 2 broadsword. So while you won't be repelling spears, other people wielding short swords are pretty darn common. Or broadswords even are pretty common in the early age. You can actually get repels against those, which is pretty interesting. At 13 attack, this helps us greatly. As mentioned, we're still size 6, so we have low attack density. And this will help mitigate not getting the harass penalty. And we're going to do 28 damage when we do hit. So generally speaking, 1 round, 1 kill with these guys. Pretty darn nice. We're also up to 16 protection, which for a strength 10 human wielding a spear, this is getting to the point that it's going to be kind of sort of hard to get through there. You'll still get some chip damage, but you're rocking 38 HP, which is not bad. Of note, they only have 12 map moves, so they are rather slow. They're wearing pretty heavy armor here. I like these guys, but you just have to make the call of when it's appropriate to be using them. Finally, we have our cap-only sacred, the Niffle Giant. These guys are... it's hard to say here. So, it's not a bad troop. It is size 9, so you're not likely to get trampled by anything but a god. You have 69, nice, HP, so rather high there. If you give them a regeneration bless, they're going to regen 7 HP per round, which really can help mitigate ship damage drastically. At 140 gold, they're relatively expensive. 22 resources is not too much. However, they have the new Sacred costs 2 holy points to recruit giant thing. So most of the time, you're looking at 5 or 6 sacred points at the beginning of the game. So you're only going to be able to get 3 of these guys, and that's if you're not getting a sacred commander. And remember, most of our command line is sacred. So you're never going to have a ton of these guys. And I would say if you're going to use them, you probably need regeneration. Maybe somebody could convince me that a bootleg Enchanted Blood maybe could work, but I don't think so. They obviously only have 1 per square, so your attack density is garbage. At attack 12, it's not great. Now, if they do hit you, they'll probably kill you, but it's not great. So you're often outnumbered and surrounded if you're using these guys. You have the susceptible to shock, like all of our troops do. Lightning, and the AI is good at targeting high HP things with spells, so these guys will get targeted by lightning spells pretty effectively. We went up to 25 cold resist, so we're basically immune to cold. We have a chill aura 10. Now remember, between Dominions 5 and 6, the intensity of auras used to stack. So a bunch of these guys together was just like a flash freeze, and everything would just be frozen. Now, you only get the chill aura at the same intensity, and they stack the size of the aura, which isn't terrible, and we do have a strong chill here, but you will not instantly flash freeze things as they come up to you. You're going to have to be in grindy combat for a little bit before that happens. Still a good thing to have. Of note, if you're using troops that are not your giant troops, watch out for this, because you will freeze your own troops rather effectively. They have the snow move, and they have cold power 1. Now, note, we can go to cold 4, so this is more powerful in cold provinces. This is strength, attack skill, and defense skill, I believe, for that one. Very strong. So if we added +4 to this, 37 damage, the attack skill suddenly goes up to 16. That actually is good attack skill. Very good attack skill. And the extra defense is nothing to sniff at, because you're going to be getting harassed, so a little extra goes a long ways there. We also have Ice Protection 2. Ice Protection gives us, this unit will have higher natural protection in the colder a province is. Warm provinces reduce natural protection instead. So we take a look at our protection. We come in naturally at 7. So with cold power 2 and a cold 4 province, you're looking at 15 natural protection. Now, of note there, if you're trying to buff them, because we do have access to nature, those spells don't do much when you have high natural protection. So there's not a ton of value buffing these guys with protection buffs if you're in the cold. Now, if you are in heat and you've lost all of your natural protection, then yes, you definitely want to be thinking about that. So if you're planning on using these guys, you need to have a plan of staying in the cold with them. Frankly, 140 gold, if we wiped off this protection and went down to 9 protection, would be garbage. Absolute garbage. Do not fight with these guys unless it's in the cold. You are asking for throwing away your money and your very limited recruitment. That all being said, with regeneration, in the cold, these guys are absolute terrors. If you can give them a little bit of buffing, like we have some very limited astral, but if you threw an ethereal on these guys, good luck killing them. If you threw blur on these guys, good luck hitting them if you've got their extra defense up. These guys like to be buffed, and because you're not going to have too many of them, they're not the worst thing in the world to try to point buff. So definitely available there. I will talk about this more when we get to Magic, but another major buff I feel for these guys is Liquid Body in hopefully the larger AoE forms, because losing force strength, especially when we're getting extra from our cold power, is not much of a thing. We don't care. You're still going to kill whatever you're hitting, but getting the reduction to afflictions taken is huge, because generally what kills tough giant troops isn't just straight damage, it's racking up afflictions over time. How much does it suck that you take some chip damage, you get a limp, you regen to full, next turn you move and you die because you have a limp? Absolutely terrible. So Liquid Body helps protect against that. We're already slowish combat speed, so being slower doesn't really matter. We're interested in grinding combat anyways, not alpha striking. Very important buff, I would say, for these guys. Moving on to our commanders. First up, we have a scout, the Jotun Scout. As hilarious as it is to have a giant scout that has stealthy 40, he does have mountain survival, forest survival, snow move, which is rather nice, cold resist, and our standard shock penalty. This is a scout that costs you 60 gold. So, memes aside, I don't particularly love these guys. I will give them the bonus that if you're using them to carry items or gold, and someone's trying to snipe you out with global spells, like Secret Arrows or something, 36 HP makes you relatively resistant to ranged magic. But 60 gold for a scout, I'm actively looking for some other option of getting scouting. That's too much. 120 gold per turn, that's almost one of our cap-only sacreds in cost. So, overpriced. I try not to get too many of these guys. I think in the game behind me here, I recruited either 2 or 4 because I didn't find a single indie scout and I needed something out there looking around, but it was painful. It was quite painful to do. Okay, next up we have various flavors of leadership here. We have the Jotun Hurst. This is a 75 leadership, so not terrible. Sacred, so interesting there. Otherwise, he has our standard suite of abilities, wielding a broadsword with decent armor. 17 protection isn't bad. If you have a okay bless, he will definitely take that. Not bad. It's nice to have tough commanders so you don't get arrowed, or that one random dude makes it to the back and just kills your leadership and everyone retreats. Not the worst thing in the world. 105 gold isn't terrible. Only 1 recruitment point. Next up we have the Jotun God. This is kind of my preferred generic commander. He does go up to 2 recruitment points. He is 150 gold, but he's Sacred 2. And Sacred 2 allows us to get our Bless out more effectively if we're using our Sacreds, and it allows us to cast Sermon of Courage. We are not particularly cowardly. 13 morale, 12 morale, and even our militia guys are at 11. So we're not particularly cowardly, but it's always nice just to give them that extra little bit of oomph. It also gives your leader a chance to stay behind your line relatively safely, but still do something. So this is my preferred recruit. They're also nice for a frontier preach or a temple build and a preach to try to push out your cold a little bit ahead of you. Can be rather important there. I will segue because I don't think I mentioned this. Our Dominion actually pushes cold out, I believe, one further than our candles currently are. If we close out of here and look, see how I have cold here, I have cold here, even though this is enemy Dominion, here's some more. So our Dominion actually can push cold out one further than that is. So we want a strong Dominion, and we want to actively be pushing it. As we've mentioned before, how incredibly important it is that we stay in the cold if we're using our Sacreds. So getting a Holy 2 guy and having a few of them out and about can be rather useful. Next up, we have the Jotun Jarl. This is a priest level 1. He is sacred. He moves up to 100 leadership, though. So now we could actually do formations. And formations are pretty good for us. You can get away without it, but it's painful when you have a group of giants and like 1/3 of your line is actually fighting and everyone's just behind them, not doing anything until somebody dies. And like you're actually getting wrapped when you shouldn't be. So pretty important. I tend to hold off on these guys maybe longer than I should. I definitely would be getting these guys if I'm using my Hildeman, because they don't even have a javelin. There's no excuse not to have these guys in line formation if you can help it. And next up, we have a non-sacred, our main battle mage, the Gaija. Pretty interesting. I kind of miss her old frumpy sprite from Dominions 5, but this is looking fine. She comes in at 300 gold, not slow to recruit. So a relatively pricey mage. She's not sacred either, so for upkeep, you're looking at 240 gold a year for only 15 research. So that's a bit of a oof. However, we have Death 1, Glamour 1, Blood 1, and 2 separate 100% chances for Astral, Death, Nature, Glamour, or Blood, with an additional 10% chance of one of those. So you could basically get a Death 3, a Glamour 3, a Blood 3, a Nature 2, or an Astral 2, or a Blood 3. So quite powerful mages. Even your absolute worst ones can find something to do. And you have blood magic, so you could Sabbath up if need be. Otherwise, they do come in at old age, and they are very old. They're not sacred, so you couldn't even get them in Unaging Bless. They have Fortune Teller 10. Fortune Teller helps prevent bad events, so if you wanted to go a little bit of misfortune, you could. And they have a Death Curse, so if somebody kills them, they get cursed, and you're not allowed to resist this one. It's whatever. These are strong mages. The fact that you're going to be probably your blood hunters, and they can do Sabbaths. They are pretty darn strong. They do have a slap which shrinks people, which is hilarious. But yeah, extra effect on damage shrink. Will it come up? Probably not. But on that rare occasion that it does, it is funny. Very good. You're going to probably need a few different ones to go out site searching based on their pathing. Ideally, you would love to see like probably a Death 2, Glamour 2, and they could go search, and then a Nature 2 could go out and search. But, whatever varieties you get, you're going to want to do that. We would definitely want to be getting gems. We have some national stuff that's pretty good. We have interest in summoning in things to fill in the holes in our line. Gems will be pretty good. Crafting will be very good because we have a super combatant chassis coming up here. So you're going to want gem income quite a lot. Of note here, again, Sabbaths. And keep Sabbaths in mind when we look at the next guy. The Jotun Sklati. These are very nice mages. They are slow to recruit, but they're not cap only. We're up to 485 gold with 194 upkeep, so very, very pricey. What do you get for that? Priest 1, Sacred, with Water 2, Blood 2, and you can get Blood, Glamour, Death, Water. 100% chance. What makes these so interesting? They are shapeshifters. They can shapeshift into werewolves. The werewolves have regeneration. You also probably took regeneration on your Bless, so you've got 20% regeneration on a chassis that has 37 HP and Blood. What this allows you to do is put these into Sabbaths as Sabbath slaves. For anyone who's worked with communions or Sabbaths, you kill your slaves by fatiguing them out. When you get to 200 fatigue, you start taking HP damage instead of fatigue. We can regen that damage on these guys. And not only that, we can regen it really well. So if you stick 2 of these guys into a Sabbath, you can do what's called turbo communions or turbo Sabbaths. That is, we're using a very small number of slaves and letting them take the fatigue and regen it instead of trying to balance out your communions properly. This is important because you're not going to get very many of these guys, and you have the paths to buff them even further. You could get a larger on here, which will up their HP. You could get personal regen in there, which will up their regen even further. So 2 of these guys supporting 4 Gajas, 6 Gajas, maybe even 8 Gajas, to do things like Horde of Skeletons forever, to do things like big death evocations, big astral, astral too, big glamour things, big blood things. They can do that for days. Generally speaking, I think Horde of Skeletons is kind of the one to do because that helps your front line so much. So 2 or 4 Gajas with 2 Scrati behind them, very powerful. In addition to that, because you can shapeshift into a werewolf and a wolf, the wolf has stealth, you can give them some light gear in werewolf form and be quite the nice little thug. So like double, what are they called? Flesh Seeker axes are quite nice. We're regenerating, we're giving out chest wounds, we go berserk. Very, very nice, very powerful. We have we have blood, we have nature, we have water. There's good items for all those things that we can give to him. So very useful there. The ability to be able to stealth is quite handy for them. Very strong unit. Slow to recruit holds them back, but they're not cap only. The price is definitely a consideration though. Finally, we have the Niffle Jarl, only recruited in our capital. This is a recruitable super combatant. This is why you probably want regeneration on your Bless. You're looking at 715 gold, slow to recruit, cap only. They have the same traits that the Sacreds have. They're wielding an Ice Blade, which is a magic weapon, at 14 attack naturally, so quite good. We have Cold Power, we have Ice Protection 3. So you could have plus 12 to your natural protection. That would be ridiculous when you're in the cold. In addition, you are sacred, so you can take whatever bless you have, and you can get water, death, or glamour as your extra pathing. You are going to probably want to do something like Soul Vortex, Liquid Body, Quicken Self, maybe Grip of Winter. There's all kinds of things you can buff him with just to combatant out. His Chill R is up to 18, which is very high. Cold Resistance 30. You do still have the shock susceptibility, so something you may want to address in your blessing, or you may want to give him an item if you can. But a recruitable super chassis. 75 HP means just right off the bat, you're regening 8 per round. Throw some items on here that give him a little bit more HP. You could get up to 9 per round quite easily. We do have nature in our nation. You could give him a ring of regen to get it up to 20% if you're stacking that with your blessing. So very, very powerful super combatant as long as you're in the cold. The second you leave the cold, they melt. So you need to be careful where you're using them, but man, they were a powerful tool to have. So you have strong armies, you have good thugs, and you have a super combatant. So it's kind of a triple threat there, because the things that counter one of those things don't necessarily counter the others. So you can surprise people with what you're doing. Who would I prophetize? That's a little bit of a hard one. Obviously, doing it to one of these guys to get their upkeep down would be nice. For the Jarl, for the Scrati, even a Gaja, although she's old, I don't like old prophets. But just to reduce the upkeep could be something you'd want to do. Generally speaking, you start with a Jotun Jarl. I prophetize this guy. because it gives you a holy 3. If you're going to do blessing things early, that's nice. It gives you an offensive spell on your expansion party. Gives you another candle, a free candle check every turn, which is very valuable. We really need to get our Dominion pushed out so that we can get our cold pushed out so that our ice giants can be useful. Circling back around to our national spells items and our site, we start with Niefelheim, which gives us recruitment of our cap-only things, gives us 4 water gems and 2 death gems. Okay income, nothing too exciting. We do like a lot of water gems, so this isn't too bad. We have good uses of those, and 2 death is pretty good little income there. Let's look at heroes next. For heroes, we only have 2. We have the Great Hag, an amazing caster. Astral 3, Death 3, Nature 2, Glamour 3, Blood 3. Lots and lots of big things you can do with that. Quite nice. Other than that, she also is an adept crossbreeder. We are a blood nation, so if you wanted to get into that, you could. I'm not in love with it, though, because not many things, if anything, from crossbreeding has cold resist, and it's going to be very cold where we want to be fighting, so I don't know if the value is there for that, but a valuable unit. Anti-magic, you could cast out of there. Give her a skull staff, you're up to 4 death, that could be quite good. You could get her armor of twisting thorns and a thistle mace, could be nature 4, just real easy. You could empower her once, now they're casting nature 5 globals. A lot of things you could do here. A very high glamour mage. You could easily cast Twilight and Nightfall. Although we don't have dark vision, but sometimes you still might consider doing that based on the circumstances. Very nice hero if you get her. And we have the Abductor. This is like a super Niffle Jarl. He gets air 3. Note we don't have air anywhere else. So that's quite handy just right off the bat. Air 3 lets him cloud trapeze, which is something that we're missing on our super combatants that is always nice. Magic phase movement. Air 3 also means that you could throw up Storm if there was a reason you wanted to do that. Maybe somebody's shooting with lots of arrows or flyers are messing you up, but they don't have air magic to use that against you. Could be pretty good there. You could boost him once, and then you could make boosters, and that gets you up to 5 air, so you could cast some big air things if somehow you just lucked into air income and you wanted to spend it on a global of some sort. Because we like to have very high strength Dominion, some of the air globals could be quite interesting to pair with that. The likelihood of it happening, not great. For national summons, we have 4 different ones. All of these are from Conjuration. First up, we have Sloth of Bears. They summon bears. They are not sacred. Don't love it. Wouldn't waste my gems on it. Next up, we have Jotun Drog. These are interesting enough. They are giant undead. They are amphibian because they're undead. They have fear. They have cold resist, poison resist. They're undead. They don't eat. They have a small chill aura. And they do have spirit sight, so they can see in the dark. They're interesting. It doesn't have a tooltip up here, but if you read down below, they are incredibly strong and can change their size at will or if they are wounded. So when they take enough damage, they actually go up in size, and I think that gives them some extra strength. I don't think it does anything else. So is that useful? I don't know. Not really. But if you need to spend some death gems for something, having a little bit of fear sprinkled in could be quite interesting. They come in at Conjuration 4, so it's not super high. Death 2 isn't that hard to get to. 15 death gems for only 3 of these, though. Is this chassis worth 5 death gems when I could summon in some Banes or something? I don't think so. So, while I think it's kind of cool, these guys would have to be like 1.5 death gems each, and probably have a more efficient summoning spell for me to actually care about them. Next up, we have the Brood of Grom. You can summon in Jotun Wolves. The Brood of Grom is only nature 2, so we can cast it natively, 10 nature gems, and it summons in 5 wolves. So for 2 gems each, you get a Sacred that has fear, a cold aura, snow move, they go berserk, and they have forest survival, and they're an animal. 2 decent attacks with fear. 30 HP is not terrible. These are actually usable. If I wanted to dump nature gems into a summon, I could totally see getting them. Unfortunately, they're size 6. It'd actually be kind of handy if they were size 3 or size 2, because then we could filter them into our front line and sprinkle some fear in there. That would be great, but they're not. So they get your blessing, so it's probably going to be regen, so that's not terrible. A few of these guys on the flanks to kind of like go around the side and get some fear in there. Pretty good. They're not very usable. Finally, we have the Rimvlati. These guys come in at Conjuration 5. They need 2 water, so we natively can cast it, and 5 water gems, which we have that income. You do get 5+, so if you have higher water magic, you'll get extras, so it can make it more efficient. We can pretty easily get water 3s, and we definitely could get a water 4. It could happen. So pretty darn efficient there. Okay, so what do you get? You get a size 2. Size 2 is very interesting because our size 6 giants could share their space with 2 of these guys. They have cold resist 25, so you don't have to worry about your sacred being around. They have their own small chill aura. Map move, they're stealthy if you wanted to maybe raid with them or something. They have forest survival, they have cold power and ice protection. They have no natural protection normally, so the ice protection will boost this a little bit. With the cold power, if these guys had 14 strength and 16 attack skill, that would be pretty brutal. And you're going to want to fight in the cold anyways, so they'll have some amount of bonus to their stats, but even just at neutral scales here, 13 attack and 15 damage is totally fine with 9 protection, and you're going to be fighting in the cold, so it'll be a little bit higher than that, and 14 defense skill. These guys will greatly stiffen up your front line. Having these filtered in there will help your giants immensely, not only just to spread out the attacks that are coming in, but to add some cold aura to your normal line, which can be valuable, and just to have some harass penalty. And they're good enough that they'll probably even get kills of their own. I like these guys a lot. It's a very tough call on where to head straight with your research because these guys are so good. Let's actually go to research to show our next ones. In Thaumaturgy, at 5, we have the Seath Curse. Death 1, Astral 1, 3 Death Gems. Range 5, can target stealth commanders, whatever. You cast a range curse at somebody, but you also curse one of your own people. When would I ever use this? If I could see a solo pretender out and about. Now it says it's anonymous, but obviously it's you, because who else has ranged curse spells? I would do it though. Cursing somebody's god is definitely worth it. Curses increase your chances of taking afflictions. Could be worth it in that circumstance. I don't see using it ever otherwise. Finally, for our last one, at Blood 6, we have Illwinter. The one, the only. It requires 3 water and 5 blood. So we can't do this natively, and your god probably isn't going to be designed to do this. However, we definitely can get water 3s. I think they would be, let's even just look. It would be you. So I would ideally want one of these guys that rolled water. So he'd be a water 3, blood 2. And then I would have to either craft / empower up to 5, but that's not bad. 3 blood empowers is really nothing. And you could do Armor of Twisting Thorns, possibly, or you could just do it. What does Illwinter do for 120 blood slaves? Because that's nothing to sneeze at. Illwinter is kind of your win condition spell. If you get this up, the entire world, every turn, has a 50% chance of unrest, D4, so whatever, cold +1 for 4 months, random attacks in cold provinces, and allows the recruitment of 1 Nifl giant in every fort for Jotun nations. So every one of your forts now could get 1 extra sacred. Cool. In single player, it's pretty usable. multiplayer, it's kind of whatever. The big thing here is the cold, though, because you can start expanding out with your armies quite efficiently once you've got that cold. Your super combatants, your thugs, you like that a lot. And you're set up to survive the cold, whereas other people may or may not be. If you're fighting people who are cold-blooded, this is pure misery. And this is well worth going for. When do you go for it, though? Hard to say. If you're going to do that much blood hunting, you probably want to have Construction 5, because you're going to want Sangering Dowsing Rods to make that more efficient. We have expensive blood hunters, even though they're good, so you need them to be efficient. But very, very worth doing. Going up blood means you'll also, along the way, you could do Bind Ice Devils. Could be interesting there. There's other blood things that can be more or less useful. We do have Glamour and Blood, so if you wanted to get some Succubi or Incubi, could be a thing. Generally speaking, out of here, Frost Fiends, they're okay. I think you really just want to rush for Illwinter. And then once you have that, then think about what you want to do. We do have the Death Blood crosspath, so you could do Bloodright, and you could pull in some vampires. Note that that is not the same as Curse of Blood, where you get Vampire Lords. So, good though, very good. Vampire Lords is a very strong, could be an I win condition, but getting here, doable for you. You definitely could, especially with your Death 3 hero. You could easily get to this. In fact, she might even come in with 3 blood, so you could almost out of the box build a staff and immediately start doing Blood Curse. Getting Immortals is amazing. It is a victory condition for sure. Talking more about research, we have super combatants, so construction at least 5 is probably in the cards. What else do you want? Enchant, because we want to do Skelly Spam. Skelly Spam is very good for us because it fills in the holes in our line, and we have Turbo Communion, so we can do it rather efficiently. In addition to that, we are also interested in Grip of Winter. Grip of Winter is a 6 enchantment for 4 water, which you can get to, and even if you can't, a water 3 can still cast this spell. It makes frost clouds appear all over the battlefield. You are essentially immune to cold. If who you're fighting is not, this is a good spell just to start fatiguing them out. You also can do Hidden in Snow, which can help with your magic diversity a little bit. Can be pretty nice. And as mentioned previously, Horde of Skeletons is very good for us. Rigor Mortis less so, but there's circumstances where you may consider doing that. Thaumaturgy, if you're having trouble with people who are cold resistant, you could go for fatigue spells on your water casters. You could go for terror on your death casters. Could be interesting. Not super good though for us. Evocation, Falling Frost obviously is one we could do, or Ice Strike. Could be good there. Alteration is a very important one for us because Woven Winter. At Alteration 4, which is pretty rushable, you could have this for your first war. You could do a ranged ritual, which gives cold scales +3, -5 population. We don't really care about the pop kill. What we care about is the cold scales. We can take a heat 3 down to neutral. You could take a neutral down to cold 3. Would be very, very helpful if you're trying to push out and attack somebody to be able to shift those scales. It is kind of expensive at 5, but we have 4 native water income. You're going to be spamming this. Alteration is also important for us because we have super combatants, quickness, liquid body. Frozen Heart is a very powerful spell if you get that high. You do auto attacks to chests, and it's armor negating. Quite good. In addition to that, Soul Vortex is one of the key spells for our super combatants. We would very much like to get that up and running, so you could go that high quite easy. And finally, we would have Conjuration. As mentioned previously, our Conj 5 summon Rinvathar are very good. Very good. If I was just swimming in water gems and I wanted something else to help earlier, I do think that Ice Drakes are pretty handy. For 7 gems, so they're pricey, you get a guy who can breathe ice through your front line, giving you kind of a flamethrower effect with ice. Always handy when you can do that. In the right circumstances, you can clear so many troops that would otherwise bog down your front line with just small, hard-to-hit things. This could be pretty important. Otherwise, we do have nature, so Brood of Guam is probably where I go with that, but whatever. Banes can be quite good here. You do have death income. You do have people who could naturally cast that. Whites could be interesting. Okay, so let's bring all that together. We have relatively elite, relatively killy, but they struggle with attack density. Good HP, good protection troops. We have a usable with asterisks next to their name, Sacred. Quite good in the right circumstances. You need to set yourself up for them, but you probably will because the same circumstances apply to your recruitable super combatant. We have a thug. We have turbo communions with our Sabbaths. We have good access to spells that play off of our cold immunity. We have okay leadership. We have a recruitable Holy 2. Overall, good native troops, I would say. You're going to want to use them. It's going to be very cold where you want to fight. So having some cold resist is kind of important so you don't fatigue yourself out by using non-cold resist troops. Our big weakness is our low attack density, but we can solve that with skeleton spam or summoning in troops to help. A very solid lineup here. Very solid. For expansion, I use the Gaudy Huskarls, and I did just fine. If I wasn't getting surrounded, I often would finish combats with no losses. Expansion can be a little bit slow, but it's slow and steady, I would say. Very handy there. Do you need a super combatant to expand? Absolutely not. You can do it just fine with these guys. So Niefelheim has the tools it needs to succeed. I think the only question comes in is how much of a blessing do you want? And we will take a look at that. For Pretender chassis choices, we do not have the most. We get the Northern Nation, a few of their Titans, but not many, because we do not get along with the Titans. We were at war with them. We get a Son of Niffle, an interesting chassis, but I don't know. The cold limit does nothing for us because we already have that. He doesn't have great pathing. I don't know. Probably not. He gets Winter Wolves as just summons. It's okay. He's just so darn pricey, and you don't need an Awake Expander, which is kind of what he's trying to be. You get some of the good monster expanders. We have the Limanor. We have the Earth Snake. We have various dragons. We have the Son of Fenrir is usable. I think he's fine. He has nature, so you'd go regen and I don't know what you'd get from water. Something light, or maybe just a couple points in water to get the blessed points you need for the nature, and just call it good. He actually is okay at expanding despite his only 13 protection. You can bark skin yourself, so that's a little bit. But he comes in with 1d6 Jotun Wolves, and remember they're going to be sacred, fear with cold auras, and he'll auto-bless them if he's present in your own dominion. He's okay if a bit iffy for expansion. You have a Bog Mummy. He exists. I don't know why I'd pay 240 points for that. You have various humans. We have a werewolf. We have Scratty. A way worse Scratty for some reason. Would I get any of these guys? A Blood one for 140 points when I could pay 100 for a Freak Lord? No. A Werewolf for 170 points when I could pay 100 for this guy? No. I think, generally speaking, we're going to be looking at immobiles. And I think we're going to be looking at immobiles that have regeneration. Regeneration is just so ridiculously good for your super combatants. I would say it's almost required. For me, I like Irminsul. He comes in with 3 nature, so I can get my regen relatively cheap, and he ups our growth scales. And he has a starting sight, which gives you 1 nature gem in your capital. Even if you take him as dormant or imprisoned, you get that. So we up our gem income from turn 1, which is pretty handy. And it's a gem that we normally don't have. In addition, he raises the growth scale limit. And since we're going to be doing some pop skill kill from our horrific cold, having some growth helps counter that and expand our economy. He is Ivy Lord 3, so if you didn't want Broods of Grom for some reason, Vine Ogres would be pretty good summoning in on him. And he has growth power, so if for some reason they're attacking your capital and you're last standing, you'll have probably growth 3. His stats go up a little bit, kind of a whatever, but it's there. I like him because he's dirt cheap. So your next decision would be Dormant or Awake. And because the things that you want to use that are sacred need to be in the cold and you won't have that instantly, I think Dormant is the way to go. Dormant, by the time you can afford to be recruiting those giants, it'll be right around the end of year 1, and you'll come in here, you'll get your region spike, and you're good to go. You can clean up any more expansion, or you can start, hopefully you've finished Alteration 4, and you can attack somebody by putting Worgen Winter in front of you. And you can use your Frost Giants as a big ice block to tar pit people down while your Giants kill them. If I wasn't going to use him, I don't know about these. I definitely would go something that has nature. I would probably look to the Monolith. Why the Monolith? Because we could get region, and from Earth we could get Resilience of Earth, fire and shock resistance. Now we'd have to pay for that somehow, so okay, so this is the bare minimum. Now note, going with Astral on your god and not having it 4 or 5 or 6 is questionable in multiplayer. In single player, you're not going to get magic dueled. It's fine. And you'd probably go Dormant on this guy. We're definitely going to go there. We would need up to 6, so we can have 2 scales. I think two growth or 1 order, 1 production. Probably go the growth just to counter out the pop kill that we're going to get. This would be totally fine. Now our giants no longer have the shock penalty. In fact, we have 5 resist, and we have some fire resist on top of that, which could definitely help. People are going to want to use fire maybe to try to counter your cold stuff. And we still have our regen. He's only dormant, so you're not going to be fighting with any of those guys before the end of year 1 anyways. We still have 6 dominions, so you can get 3 sacred giants per turn, or 2 plus a commander. I think this would be totally fine. This is very usable. What I went with a Dormant Irminsul. He's got much better scales because he's just cheaper. We've got 2 order, 2 production, 4 cold, 3 growth. And that gives us regen and heroism. I like heroism quite a lot, even after the nerf. This applies to most of our command line, and he doesn't have to be on the map for it to start working. So we're just already starting to level up our various heroes and mages and whatnot. Pretty good. The extra sight, having that nature gem is nice. Guarantees that I can do a little bit of remote nature site searching if I need to, or I could do a little light nature crafting, maybe a thistle mace for my searcher, or some rings of regen for my super combatants, some vine shields, lots and lots of things there. Summon in some Brood of Grom if I have to. Either way, I think these are both pretty good. This is the more scalesy one. Obviously, he's going to have a ton more money than the Monolith would have, but the Monolith has the bonus of getting rid of that shock penalty, which is a big hole and could save you, if nothing else, an item on your super combatants to patch that up. So I think both of those are pretty good. So, in conclusion, Niefelheim, Sons of Winter, a very fun, very classic, I mean, they cast the spell Illwinter, for goodness sakes, nation. I think this is one that a lot of people gravitate towards at the beginning, and I think rightfully so. I think they can be a little tricky to play. They're definitely weaker, I would say, than they used to be by fact that You need 2 holy points to be able to recruit these guys. So best case scenario, you're getting 5 of these out of your capital for most of the game. And how often do you have 10 Dominion strength? For me, not often. I think we in Therados game the other day, we got to 8, and that was pretty high for me. I generally end up sitting at 6 or 7. So very fun nation, get you in to do some blood stuff, get you in to do some cool cold spells that maybe you don't get to do too often. You can do thugging, you can do super combatants. Both of those are very fun. Giant troops, while they have distinct strengths and weaknesses, are generally relatively friendly for newer players. Stick with these guys, you won't do wrong. Try to get something small to patch in with them to help them out. Do very well there. Overall, I hope people enjoyed Niflheim. I'm really looking forward to playing them. I did a few test games, and every single one of them was a lot of fun. I like the strategy of trying to spread my cold very aggressively to be able to use my high-powered troops. I like the idea of finding ways to patch up my holes in my line with smaller troops. That's kind of just fun to do. It's interesting. Yeah, a very fun nation overall. I'm curious if people have other, like, Hellbless level things that they like to do on Niflheim. I really do feel like regeneration's a requirement. I mean, if you're playing this nation because you want to use Ice Giants, right? So not taking regen just seems foolish, but maybe I could be convinced otherwise. Maybe you guys could convince me that we should play the Monolith instead of Irminsul, but either way, I think this is a cool nation. If you've played them before, tell me what your experiences are. Share what your favorite pretenders are. Absolutely looking forward to these guys. These guys are going to be an absolute blast to play. Very powerful. All right, builders. I will see you on stream if I don't see you before them on some other piece of content. If you've made it this far, as always, a like and a subscription, if I've earned it, are always appreciated. Comments, likes, subscriptions, all those things help other people see the game. Lately, I've had a few comments from new players saying, hey, you helped me get into the game. That's my favorite thing to hear, because this game deserves to be seen by more people, and I think a lot of people are either put off by the graphics or the complexity, and I think once you can get over that, you find an absolute gem of a game that if you really get into, you will sink hundreds of hours into, and if you get into the multiplayer, probably thousands of hours into. Niflheim, Sons of Winter, signing off here. I'll see you guys on stream, builders. Take care and build something cool.